There is an old Chinese saying, no one escapes being talked about behind their back, and no one stands before others without talking about someone else. When many people hear this saying, they simply think, it just means being talked about isn't a big deal. Everyone goes through it. But that isn't what it really means. It points to something much deeper. Talking about other people isn't just about right or wrong. It's one of the oldest social mechanisms in human society. Think about it. Long ago, there was no internet, no newspapers, and no public culture coders. There wasn't even a well-developed government system. How did people decide whether someone could be trusted? They relied on what people said. What had someone done? What kind of person were they? People talked about it from one person to another. Slowly, a consensus formed across villages, towns, and whole regions. That was called public opinion in the local community. During the Han Dynasty, when officials selected talented people, local leaders recommended them. They cared a great deal about a person's reputation in the local community. The kind of a person you were among your neighbors could directly affect whether you would enter a government service. So talking about people wasn't just gossip. It was the main way information spread, and it was a real force that helped keep social order. A person's reputation was built by what everyone around them said about them. In ancient China, talking about people wasn't seen as a bad habit. It was a basic social mechanism that helped society work. This system reached its peak during the late Eastern Han Dynasty. At that time, there was a man named Xu Shao. Together with his brother Xu Jing, on the first day of every month, they gave their opinions about well-known people. That became known as the Yue Dan reveal. Anyone who was mentioned quickly became known among scholars across the country. A single Yue Dan reveal could make an unknown person famous overnight, or it could destroy someone's reputation. When Cao Cao was young, he went to visit Xu Shao and asked him to judge his character. Xu Shao refused. Cao Cao kept asking. Finally, Xu Shao said the words that became famous for centuries: a capable minister in times of peace, and a cunning hero in times of chaos. After hearing this, Cao Cao laughed and walked away. He had traveled there just to be judged, because he understood one important thing. In those days, being talked about was the only way to enter the public eye. Being talked about was a kind of advantage. Smart people didn't try to avoid being talked about. Instead, they chose to step into public judgment. Now, there's a question. This brings us to an important question. If everyone will be talked about, then what really sets people apart isn't whether people talk about you. It is after the talk begins, how you choose to respond. Wang Anshi of the Northern Song Dynasty gave one of the clearest answers in history. Wang Anshi began his reforms. They affected the interests of many powerful people. Criticism came at him from every direction. Sima Guang opposed him. Many officials also attacked him. Later, even Su Shi criticized his reforms many times. Wang Anshi summed up his belief in one sentence: do not fear changes in nature. Do not blindly follow the ways of the ancestors, and do not fear what people say. But these words didn't mean he ignored other people's opinions. It was because he understood one important truth. If everyone's opinion could make you change your direction, then no reform could ever succeed. Reform itself means changing existing institutions, and that will always bring criticism. If you stop because of criticism, then reform can never truly begin. It wasn't because he was usually strong. It was because his judgment was clear. He knew which voice were worth listening to and which ones should never change your direction. In the end, Wang Anshi's reforms failed. For nearly 1,000 years, he has been criticized. But for just as long, people have also continued to study him, because what he did was real and important enough. The people simply couldn't ignore it. One of the people who understood this better than anyone else was Zetian. She was probably one of the most talked about people in Chinese history. She was criticized while she was alive. She was criticized after she died. And that criticism has lasted for more than 1,000 years. But before she died, she did one remarkable thing. She left behind a blank monument. She wrote novels to defend herself. That single act was more powerful than any defense. Her message was clear. What I have done, let future generations decide. It wasn't because she didn't care. It was because she knew being talked about is inevitable. What truly matters doesn't need to be defended by yourself. Leave the right to defend who you are to time. Many people have been misunderstood. Many people have also been praised. But later generations rarely remember the rumors. What people remember is what they truly did. No one escapes being talked about behind their back, and no one stands before others without talking about someone else. What the saying really means, being talked about is a normal part of human society. No one can escape it, and no one needs to. What truly matters isn't what people talk about you. It's what remains after all the voices have faded away. What have you truly left behind?